Eric Trump just delivered an epic rant live about how Bitcoin and crypto will completely replace and take over banks. He sees Bitcoin and crypto as superior technology. He also talks about systematic censorship that is currently happening here. Fittingly, a really intense interview clip has now surfaced from Michael Ballweg, who talks precisely about this issue, how he is systematically censored by the system. And Bitcoin was the solution here, censorship resistant. They could take everything from him except Bitcoin. But first, let's take a look at the statements. Here from Eric Trump, who is known to be a big supporter of Bitcoin for a long time. In Nashville, he said at the conference that Bitcoin could reach up to $1 million. He has also occasionally had some strange takes on various shitcoins and so on. But in general, he is, of course, very, very bullish on everything that is decentralized. The most intense part is that he even says all banks that don't adopt Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies will be gone in 10 years. But listen for yourself to what she has to say here.
And the willingness to actually look forward and realize that the modern financial system is broken, it's slow, it's expensive, and there's nothing that can be done on, blockchain that can't be done better than the way that the current financial institutions are working.
Current financial system is broken, yes, not functional. It's slow, it's inefficient, and there's nothing that blockchain can't do better, more efficiently. This could be solved here. However, one must also make some distinctions here. That means I am always a big advocate of Bitcoin. I also see many blockchain developments somewhat critically. Sure, stablecoins, and theoretically, they could also make things a bit more efficient. I'm quite sure that this will definitely make the US dollar more efficient as well. Blockchain is a very, very big topic, so that also includes some strange shitcoin projects. I don't believe that this will necessarily make the financial system much more stable, but in general, he is certainly right here. If you focus on the fundamentals like Bitcoin and so on, then Bitcoin will probably massively outpace everyone.
Swift is an absolute disaster. There's not a week that goes by that I'm either trying to send out a wire on a Friday afternoon or trying to receive a wire on a Friday afternoon. You're worried if you're going to hit that 4 o'clock cutoff time, where you might not see your, whatever funds you're supposed to be receiving in the ordinary course of business, for another 72 hours or whatever it might be. It's insane. Why do banks work 9 to 5, with a long lunch break, Monday through Friday? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's, you could go try and get a mortgage in the United States or really anywhere else around the world. But, you and, whoever your spouse is, you could sit there for 90 days, 120 days going through and know your customer with a bank that's literally been your banker for the last 25 years, and it takes you, 120 days to get a mortgage to buy a house. By the time you get the mortgage, the house that you want to buy is already gone and, your dream's already imploded.
Crazy, like he has the rampages here. And here the whole banking system is totally debunked. This clearly says here that the SWIFT system can be completely forgotten. It's a complete disaster. How can it be that banks only work from 9 to 5, that they don't work on weekends, that you can't make transactions on weekends, and that transactions sometimes take a very, very long time? And I don't know, when you want to send transactions abroad, it not only takes a long time, but it also costs a lot of money. And the next thing is they work here, and then it somehow takes half a year to get a loan or something like that. With Bitcoin or in decentralized protocols or something like that, it's of course possible. Instantly. For example, there are providers that offer Bitcoin-backed loans and so on. I also keep hearing feedback from people who clearly confirm the vast majority agrees when you use Bitcoin here to get loans. You can also, for example, deposit Bitcoin and then get a fiat loan or something like that. This can sometimes happen within hours, within days, depending on what platform you use, of course. Whether you do it, with your own keys, meaning you keep your keys, as is possible with Firefish, for example, or if you use other options like Nexo or something like that, there are options like that too. But there will always be more options coming. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone, or something like that. Of course, there are also people or others. This is definitely a very interesting story, the credit market story that will emerge here. And I also think this will be the next big driver of adoption. Here, the Bitcoin credit market, that's also what Michael Saylor says. For a 10 million Bitcoin price, the credit market needs to be up and running. And at the moment, it's still in its infancy. Yes, you can test it out, but it's not quite there yet. It's not crazy up and running, but once it's rolled out, and it already almost works better than traditional banking, then it would naturally be a massive catalyst here.
This isn't modern finance. This is incompetence. Try and transfer money across the world. You want to go buy a watch. You want to go buy a car. You want to go, do whatever it is. The banks take half of that. You have currency conversion rates. You have all sorts of things. You have to find a branch bank in a country with a banker you've never spoken to before. You don't even know if they're, a real life banker or if they're a fraudster. Whereas you can open up a DeFi app right now. You can open up, any cryptocurrency app and you can send money wallet to wallet instantaneously without the expense, without the variability. Our banking system is broken. Our banking system is antiquated. Our banking system favors the ultra wealthy. And And what actually got me into it is the fact that I realized our banking system, it was weaponized against the vast majority of people in our country, either the people that don't have the zeros on their balance sheet or people who might have worn that red hat that said, "Make America Great Again." And it forced me into the crypto world. And I'm telling you, if the banks don't watch what's coming, they're going to be extinct in 10 years.
And it's quite a bold prediction he's making here, that if the banks don't pay attention and open up to this, then all the banks will be finished in 10 years. And I believe that will also be the big filter, banks that invest in Bitcoin or banks that miss the boat and don't invest in Bitcoin. And he's really going off here saying that banks, what we currently have is not a financial system, but rather incompetence. He then talks about how banks take away half, which is obviously an exaggeration, but banks do take a very, very large portion away. How can it be that when you do currency swaps, you pay such large fees, and for international transfers, you pay very, very large fees? How can that be? And with a Bitcoin app or something like that, you can instantly transfer money anywhere. Don't have to ask anyone for permission. You simply have your keys and then you can send. If you don't have your keys, you can't send. He also says that elites are favored by the current banking system. And now the exciting part, which is going to be very, very interesting, is that Michael Ballweg was brought into the whole Bitcoin story by censorship. That means Michael Saylor also always says you need to know, that's how he puts it. So you need some kind of pain stimulus or something like that to get into Bitcoin. Not everyone, but many need that. And he himself was censored here. This shows that even billions and millions don't protect us from censorship, because the banks are sometimes not so well disposed towards Trump and so on, or against the Republicans or something like that. And he was censored, so he was forced into Bitcoin and crypto, as he says here. So he was basically forced into it. And this is now very, very interesting. Here is Michael Ballweg with a new statement in an interview, because something similar happened to him, but probably much, much more extreme. But check it out for yourselves. It's really, really interesting what stories Bitcoin is writing here.
You just mentioned Bitcoin, Mr. Ballweg. Do you see this cryptocurrency as the new, secure means of payment? Yes, absolutely. It's not just that my assets are seized, but I'm also debanked. That means all my accounts have been seized. I also have difficulties getting new accounts. And when I got out of prison, I had to consider whether I wanted to put a lot of energy into opening new accounts. That would then be closed again, that could be seized. I just want to report what was seized from me. So, cash was of course seized from me. I also had some precious metals which were seized. My stock portfolio was seized, of course my banks, but also my companies. That means all these assets are not safe from seizure. What couldn't be seized was my Bitcoin balance, because if you use Bitcoin securely, it is also resistant to seizure. Now it was the Easter holidays again, during which banks take a break, pause, and transfers are not possible then. With Bitcoin, it's a worldwide network that is always there, which you can use at any time, and the transaction is completed within 10 minutes. That means it's very worthwhile to get involved with it. I myself say I always live with Bitcoin and cash. It certainly has its challenges. For one, it has the same problem with account closures. Too few people are naturally moving towards change and using Bitcoin to support some critical organizations. The fate that has befallen me share. Yes, those who, let's say, have a different opinion than the official narrative, I'll just say. And I can only urge everyone to change in that regard as well. The old banking system is a censorship system. There's also a chapter about this in my book. There are also wonderful videos on YouTube where it's explained how banking has been systematically used for years to silence critics of the system. It's just now becoming apparent to us. So I was in 2020, right? Until 2020, I had never been to a demonstration. Then I organized demonstrations, and then I learned what the system's repressive capabilities are. And I just want to encourage everyone, once again, to explore new alternatives also in preparation for the CDBCs, that is, the central bank, the digital euro. Those who are not prepared will have to go along with the old or the old new system, right? And I think none of us want that.
And that's exactly why I always say anyone who doesn't have Bitcoin has currently lost control over their life, because that's exactly the problem. You can also say, okay, nothing's happening to me and so on. I'm not critical of the system, but as it turns out now, for example, in the Michael Ballweg case, he hasn't really done anything significant, and the prosecution can't really do anything to him. And the whole process, I'm not fully into the details, but as it seems, it's leading to nothing. And then you're somehow censored for nothing, you're thrown into prison for nothing. And that's exactly the problem with CBDCs. That censorship can potentially occur here. And maybe it turns out afterward that you didn't do anything at all, or something like that. But then there are some people who might not like you, who might not have you on their list, and who can basically take you down here. And that's why Bitcoin gives you back sovereignty, because Bitcoin is truly the only thing you can really own. Well, you could say if gold is securely stored, You could say it's also somehow free from third-party risk. But then you have to bury it somewhere in the garden, or something like that. Then the question arises again, okay, who issues the property rights over the garden? That's also a state or something like that. That means anything issued by a state can potentially be taken away from you because the state also has the currency monopoly and the monopoly on force. That means every piece of clothing, every car, every house, every piece of land, even your gold, your stock portfolio, everything can be taken away from you. Many people think, okay, it can't be taken away from me. There is a monopoly on force, so in an emergency, you get beaten down, imprisoned, or whatever, or you get blackmailed, or who knows what. But with Bitcoin, it's not that easy. And you could see that in this case as well. From that perspective, this is a very, very positive example. I always say, keep your Bitcoin really in cold storage. That means get yourself a hardware wallet. Only if you have a hardware wallet are you safe from expropriation here. As long as you have it on an exchange, as long as you have an ETF, then this happens. Very, very quickly, your Bitcoin can change. That means Michael Ballweg couldn't be censored here because he probably had a cold storage solution. And Michael also included a link below to a TREZOR hardware wallet. You can really set up the whole thing easily there. Super easy. And of course, you have to spend about half an hour on it, or maybe even 2, 3, 4 hours. In any case, you can use the code Bitcoin Hotel here. There's up to a 10% discount on such a hardware wallet. If you want to buy Bitcoin, check out 21 Bitcoin. There's also with the green. Bitcoin Hotel still offers up to 20% off the purchase of Bitcoin, not at Bitcoin, but of Bitcoin. Guys, we'll see each other. Greetings from El Salvador. Peace out.